In this Tech Talk, I am discussing mechanical dough development with Toon Vinderpas, product sales manager for mixing for Kaak. Hi, Toon. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, how are you doing?
I am excited to learn about the mechanical dough development system that Kaak offers. This is very interesting, and I know there's a lot to learn. So let's start just with a general overview of mechanical dough development, or MDD, as you call it, and some of those overall benefits.
The main benefits of this type of mixing is automation, hygiene, and vacuum and pressing mixing, which I will explain a little bit later on.
Okay, great. Well, I know another benefit is efficiency. So can you sort of explain to me how MDD accomplishes efficient mixing without impacting the quality of dough? It shortens the mixing time. So I'm interested to learn how it can do that for artisan breads without impacting that quality.
First of all, it is a very intensive mixing. That means that in a short time, we can develop the dough very, very good. So the gluten structure is developed very well. We do that based on a measuring system. And what we do, actually, we measure the amount of kilograms content into the mixer and apply the right amount of energy to it. So we are not mixing on time, but we are mixing on energy, what we call watt-hour per kilogram or per pounds for the States.
Okay, that makes sense. So you mentioned pressure mixing and vacuum mixing. The MDD system can use either one of those or even both. So can you kind of explain what those concepts are and what the benefits of each are, and maybe what some of the products are best suited for either vacuum or pressure, or sometimes both?
Yes, sure. First, I will explain a little bit about the principle. We're talking about vacuum and pressure mixing. With vacuum mixing, what you actually do is, while mixing, the gas trapped into the dough will expand, and during the mixing cycle, that gas bubble, which starts to grow, will be divided in smaller gas bubbles. And after your mixing stage, or just before actually when the mixing stage is done, you release your vacuum so that smaller air bubbles, which are divided through the dough, are becoming even smaller. So that vacuum mixing part creates actually a fine distribution of finer cells. So at the end, you have a product with a fine cell structure. The other hand, we're talking about pressure mixing. What you actually do, you add more air into your mixing bowl. It is a closed system, by the way. And that more air, in that air is oxygen, and that oxygen reacts with the teal groups of your gluten strings. The teal, if you have that oxidation, which will be done via ascorbic acid, then you get a more stronger gluten network forming, disulfide bridges, and those stronger gluten network form can hold better, or actually it traps the air which is created into the dough by gas or by trapped air. So at that point, you get a more open structure because that gas is better retained.
So how does a baker know which one is best for their product? Do you sort of walk through that with them, or?
Typically, when you when your product wants to be a fine structured product like called toast bread, then or buns, you have a more fine structure. You typically use a vacuum. But if you want to have, for instance, an artisan style pizza, where you want to have more bigger bubbles, then you can make use of the pressure. So in that combination, you can play. So actually, you have two buttons where you can steer with. You can a little bit tweak to the vacuum or a little tweak to the pressure.
Okay, so it's something that can be really just depending on what they're making that day on the line.
Yeah. So it makes also the mixer very versatile and flexible, that you can choose different styles of products.
That's incredible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So the other thing I find very interesting about this system is that it's about way more than just the mixing stage, right?
Yeah, that's totally true, because I must not say that we sell a mixer only. I have to say we have to sell a complete mixing system with ingredient handling and dosing. What I said before, we are measuring the exact amount of ingredients which goes into the mixer. And based on that calculation, we know how much energy is added per pound of dough. So we never overmix or undermix your dough, and you don't mix on time. Other fact is that we measure the temperature of the flour and compensate that with the temperature of the water. So it is not only that you have this fixed ratio solid ingredients and water ingredients, but you have also a controlled mixing structure phase where you have always the same output, also in temperature, but also in water flour ratio.
Okay, so this is an extremely accurate system. It's not just about what happens once the ingredients go into the mixer. It is an entire process to make sure that it's accurate, right?
Yes, that's true. Yeah. So we measure what I said. We measure the flour, but also the liquids like vinegar, like liquid yeast, will be measured via flow meters, and they are very accurate. And they are stored in the recipe. So each day you will calling up your recipe, you get the same output Monday morning and also Friday evening. Because one of the driven factors we also do is we cool the mixer. The complete mixer will be cooled. That has some reason, because we want to have the environment in the morning when it is cold, and also in the Friday night when people want to go home. The mixer is constantly the same. So constantly the same parameters you have all through the production week.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And there's one more thing that I wanted to ask you about. This system is also, it has a very highly hygienic design, correct? Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about the sanitation benefits that come with the MDD system?
Yeah. If we look in the old days, so to say, of the bakery industry, there was saying, doesn't matter hygienic because it goes into oven and all the germs will be killed. Now, nowadays there's a change. The bakeries are starting to look more like meat companies, which have a higher hygienic standard. So that's why we as Kaak are meeting not only for mixing, but all our equipment to the highest hygiene standards. For the mixer, what we did, we designed a closed mixing system. So the mixer itself is washed down. That means also that there is no dust going into the machine, but also not going out to the machine. Besides that, we have a patented CIP system for the mixing bowl itself. That comprises that we have a kind of special ring which we put on the mixer bowl. And then we run a sanitation program like your dishwasher at home. It has several stages where you have a deep cleaning, where you have a soaking stage, so you can program it yourself. So you don't need to climb into the mixer. Hand scraping, so it also saves a lot of manpower. But also the mixer is completely clean, not only on the bottom, but also in the lid.
Okay, so I really like the analogy that you used, that the CIP system is very similar to how a dishwasher in your home functions.
Yeah.
Because I think that is an analogy that works really well for line operators in a bakery when they compare hygiene to the hygienic practices that they have at home. It really helps them get their heads around the benefits of that hygienic design.
That's correct. And also the complete automation of the mixer makes it also possible that, I think in Europe it is the case, but it will be also in the States, that there is there's a lack of bakers. We have more operators than bakers. So operators have a lot of tendency to work with products than bakers. So you need to have an automated system which is a little bit foolproof and works by itself. So you have to push the green button and the blue button, and then it works. And then a little bit exaggerated, but that is the way we are working. Yeah.
So that is an incredible insight and making your equipment user friendly.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, so Ton, what's the best way for a baker to learn more about the MDD system, and how can they get in touch?
Now, first of all, they can get in touch via our website, www.kaak.com. But I would like to encourage potential customers to come over to Holland, because we have a very nice complete test center where we have, besides an industrial scale mixer for testing, So not a laboratory one, but an industrial scale mixing. We have also other kind of equipment where they can test with their ingredients on our equipment. So there we can prove not only for the customer, but also for ourselves that their process with their recipe is working with our equipment.
Okay, that is incredible. Yeah, that's really helpful to have an opportunity to experience this equipment
Definitely.
firsthand.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for taking time to educate me on the mechanical dough development system. This has been really enlightening and helpful. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time as well.